I'm remaking Poppy Playtime in Unity, and over the last 4 days, I added something the project was seriously missing: an AI that can actually hunt the player. But that wasn't the only thing that happened. In those same 4 days, I also pushed the project somewhere I didn't expect it to run at all, along with a bunch of other updates to the game. And if you watch until the end, I'll show you how you can download it and play it for yourself, either on your PC or even on your phone. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing I needed to do was actually get a 3D model, and I found this one on Sketchfab, which came with a bunch of animations. And since the model already had animations, the first thing I did was set those up in Unity using an animator controller. That way, the monster could switch between things like idle, walking, and running depending on what the AI was doing. Because if the character just slides around the map without animations, he immediately looks a bit less intimidating. So I set up a few basic animation states that the AI could control later on. Now I could focus on getting him to actually move. Right now, the game is just a map with the player walking around, which isn't exactly terrifying. So the first step was setting up a nav mesh so the AI can actually navigate the level. A navigation mesh is data that Unity generates to tell AI where it can and can't walk. So instead of the AI just blindly walking into walls, it understands the layout of the level and can pathfind around obstacles. Once that was baked, I added a simple nav mesh agent to the character so it could move around the map. And with that, it technically worked. The problem is, it looked really weird. Part of the issue was that the animations and the movement weren't really synced, so the monster would kind of glide around while the animation tried to keep up. So I changed the AI speed to connect to the speed of his animations. That way, when the AI is patrolling, it'll use a slower walk animation, but the moment it starts chasing you, it can switch to a full sprint. But he's still just wandering around the map randomly, which isn't very scary. So instead of random movement, I started building an AI around states. The first state is patrol. In this state, the AI just moves around to different points that you have set in the editor. So now it actually feels like the monster is roaming around the level instead of just spinning in circles. But of course, the important part is what happens when it finds the player. So I added a detection system using a raycast. Basically, if the player gets close enough and the AI gets a clear line of sight, it'll switch immediately into a chase state. And once that happens, the nav mesh agent updates its destination to the player's position, which means it immediately starts running straight at you. But it also revealed a pretty big problem. Right now, the moment you break line of sight, the AI just completely forgets you exist, which isn't exactly what I wanted. So before doing anything else, I needed to make the AI a lot smarter. If you're interested in seeing where this project goes, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next upload. Right now, if you round a corner, the AI just decides he must not have seen anything, which makes escaping way too easy. So I added another AI state called search. Now, whenever the AI loses sight of the player, it remembers the last place it saw them. And if the player disappears for a few seconds, the AI will switch into the search state and run over to that exact spot. And once it gets there, it doesn't immediately give up. Instead, it waits around the area for a bit to see if the player will show up again. Which means if you're hiding nearby, the monster is probably still very close. And if it spots you again during the search, it instantly switches back into chase mode. But if it looks around long enough and still can't find you, it eventually gives up and goes back to patrolling, which means the whole AI now works as a loop: patrol, chase, search, patrol. And with all that working together, the AI finally started feeling like something that was actually hunting for the player. But once the AI was working, I decided to read some of your comments. And I listened to them. So I switched the project over to a mobile build target in Unity, and it didn't work, and I ended up reinstalling Unity, and it took a long time. But after finally installing the necessary things to make an Android build, I could tackle the next challenge: figuring out how to make it playable. Right now, the entire game is built around mouse and keyboard, and phones obviously don't have those. And since I've never actually made a mobile game before, this was going to take some experimenting. So the first thing I added was a virtual joystick. This just lets the player use their thumb to control movement instead of using WASD. Since my movement system already used direction vectors, it was actually pretty easy to plug the joystick into the existing controller. But movement alone isn't enough. The player still needs things like jumping and crouching. So for mobile, I added a couple UI buttons for those, and now when you tap them, they trigger the same functions the keyboard inputs used before. So by day 3, the game was technically playable on a phone. You could move around, jump, crouch, all the basics. But there was still a pretty big problem. None of the grab pack controls worked yet, and since the game revolves around the grab pack, that was kind of important. So the next step was mapping all of those controls to mobile. I added buttons for switching hands, controls for actually firing the hands, grabbing things and pulling objects, and finally I added a button for interacting with items, so players can pick it up in the same way they would on PC. Luckily, not everything required rewriting all the scripts. Just like before, I mainly had to swap inputs from the keyboard to the UI buttons. Once everything was hooked up, the grab pack finally worked on mobile, which meant you could now interact with things and switch between hands just like on PC. And with all that working, it was finally time to start testing one of the new mechanics I added in this update. Running away from our new AI is fun, but it would be much better if there's a way we could hide. So I added the ability to squeeze through tight gaps in the walls where the AI is unable to follow us. I also have begun replacing in-game models with custom-made ones. Huge thanks to a friend over on Discord for making models for the boost pad, swing handles, and the next feature I'm about to show you. If you'd like to contribute a custom model to this project, just let me know in the comments because we have so many models that need to be made. Now, with most of the mechanics finally working together, there were still a few important things I wanted to add. The biggest one was the magnetic cuffs. In the actual game, the grab pack hands can attach to certain metal surfaces, letting you pull yourself across gaps. So I added a system where certain objects in the level have a magnetic component, and when the hand hits one of those surfaces, it locks onto it. Once it attaches, the player can use that point to pull themselves forward. But of course, once the player could start flying across the map, a few bugs started showing up. So I spent a bit of time fixing those issues, and I also fixed a bunch of issues that you guys found while I was at it. If you find any bugs, let me know in the comments and I'll try to fix them next. Once everything was working a bit more reliably, I wanted a quick way to test all of these new mechanics together. So I built a small test map. It's basically a simple level where you can run around, use the grab pack to solve a puzzle, and try to hide or avoid the AI that's hunting you down. And honestly, it ended up turning into a pretty fun little minigame that you can access through the settings menu. Before I end this video, I'm just going to quickly show you how you can download the project or build for PC and mobile. Right now, the mobile build is Android only because building for iOS requires compiling with Xcode, which only runs on a Mac, and I don't have one. So for now, Android is the only mobile version available. To download the build, go to the itch.io link in the description, and if you're on PC, download the PC version, extract the zip file, delete the original zip, open the folder, and run the exe file. For mobile, go to the same link on your phone and download the Android build. Once it finishes downloading, you can open the file. Your phone might warn you that it's from an unknown source, but just choose to continue and install it. If you want the full Unity project so you can modify it or add your own stuff, go to the GitHub link in the description, click on code, then download zip. Extract the folder, delete the original zip, open the Unity editor, and select the first subfolder and click open. If nothing is showing in the game window, make sure you remember to open the scene. And that's it for this video. If you haven't seen the rest of the series, I recommend you do so, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next upload. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.